Hello, everyone. One of the most popular things in Japan is the samurai. They are brave warriors who walked the land and spent their youth training their bodies and minds to learn how to fight with sharp swords. Nowadays, if you go out on the streets in Japan and ask anyone the question, "Who is the greatest samurai in history?" you may receive the same answer, an extraordinary name that shines above all others: Miyamoto Musashi. A lot of people call him the sword saint of Japan. Others call him the greatest sword fighter who ever lived. In his lifetime, Miyamoto Musashi, the lone swordsman, wandered across the lands of Japan and fought in more than 60 duels. Most of these fights were to the death, yet he remained undefeated and never lost even once. But what truly made Miyamoto Musashi more than just a fighter and turned him into a Japanese cultural icon was this: he was also an artist. Beyond the battlefield, Miyamoto Musashi practiced art with the same discipline he used in sword fighting. He painted simple but powerful ink pictures, wrote poems about his thoughts and life, and made sculptures from wood. Near the end of his life, he wrote the famous book, The Book of Five Rings. This book talks about strategy and ways of thinking, and people around the world still read and study it today. For Miyamoto Musashi, the sword was not just a tool for fighting, it was a path to self-knowledge. Through these fights, he learned to become flexible, quick-minded, and adaptable. He also learned to remain calm even when fear, challenge, and pressure surrounded him. From these experiences, he developed a unique fighting style that people had never seen before. By exploring the story of Miyamoto Musashi, we not only learn from him courage and discipline, but also the determination to walk on a lonely path of training in order to become a better version of ourselves. Let's begin his journey. A difficult childhood. Around 1584, a baby boy was born into a samurai family in a small village in Mimasaka Province, Japan. His name was Benosuke, but later the world would know him as Miyamoto Musashi, the man later generations would call the sword saint of Japan. Musashi's father, Shinmen Munasai, was a famous master of swords and other fighting arts. However, Musashi's childhood was not easy. His mother died when he was very young. His father remarried, but that marriage also failed. The young boy grew up under the care of relatives. He was stubborn, hard to control, and full of wild energy. In 1596, when Musashi was only 13 years old, something happened that changed his life forever. A well-known swordsman named Arima Kihei came to the village and put up a sign to challenge anyone to a fight. The young Musashi crossed out the swordsman's name and wrote his own name instead. It was a true David versus Goliath moment. A small, young boy standing up against a grown, experienced warrior. No one believed the boy had any chance of winning, but the result would shock everyone who was there. The next day, in front of the whole village, the boy picked up a wooden sword and rushed straight at the adult swordsman. The fight ended in seconds. Arima Kihei fell to the ground and never got up again. This was the beginning of the journey of Japan's greatest swordsman. Years of wandering. After his first fight, Musashi left his village and became a shugyosha, a wandering swordsman who traveled across the country, looking for fights and training himself to become stronger. In 1600, the Battle of Sekigahara broke out, a great civil war that decided the future of Japan. Musashi, who was only 17 at the time, fought on the losing side. He survived, but the winners hunted down the defeated soldiers without mercy. Musashi became a fugitive, homeless, nameless, and alone. But those hard years shaped him into an extraordinary swordsman. Every day, from dawn to dusk, Musashi practiced his sword skills deep in the mountains and forests. He developed a unique fighting style, using two swords at the same time: a long sword, katana, in his right hand, and a short sword, wakizashi, in his left hand. This style later became known as Niten Ichi Ryu, meaning two heavens as one. Throughout his life, Musashi fought and won more than 60 one-on-one fights, most of them to the death. He never lost a single one. The legendary duel. In 1612, Musashi entered the most famous duel in the history of Japanese swordsmanship. His opponent was Sasaki Kojiro, a celebrated swordsman known for his unusually long sword and a technique compared to the flight of a swallow. Kojiro served a powerful lord, while Musashi was still a wanderer who belonged to no one. The duel happened on a small island. Musashi arrived late on purpose, making Kojiro wait under the hot sun. As frustration and impatience grew inside Kojiro, Musashi sat calmly in his boat, carving a wooden sword from a spare oar, one that was longer than Kojiro's blade. When the two men finally faced each other on the sandy beach, Kojiro drew his sword and threw the scabbard on the ground. Musashi said quietly, "You have already lost. A swordsman who knows he will win does not throw away his scabbard." Kojiro rushed at him in anger. The two men moved and attacked at the same time. Kojiro's blade cut the cloth band around Musashi's head, but Musashi's wooden sword hit the top of Kojiro's skull. Kojiro fell. He never stood up again. After this duel, Musashi gave up fighting to the death. He knew he had reached the top. Now he needed to find a different kind of height to reach. Artist and philosopher. Many people think that a swordsman only knows how to fight, but Musashi proved them wrong. After giving up life and death duels, Musashi spent the rest of his life studying and practicing art and philosophy. He became an excellent inkwash painter, an artist who used only ink and water to create his works. His paintings of birds are considered masterpieces. He also made swords, carved sculptures, and practiced calligraphy. He studied Zen Buddhism, meditation, and the tea ceremony. Musashi believed that when a person truly masters one art, that deep understanding can help them in every other area of life. The sword and the brush, the battle and the painting, strategy and meditation, they are all one. This was his core philosophy. In his later years, Lord Hosokawa invited Musashi to become a teacher and advisor. Musashi made his home in Kumamoto, where he taught swordsmanship and continued creating art. But even with this comfortable position, Musashi kept his simple, disciplined way of life, just as he had lived as a young wanderer. The Book of Five Rings, a lasting legacy. In 1643, when he was nearly 60 years old, Musashi went to live in a cave called Reigando in the mountains. There, in the final years of his life, he wrote his greatest work, the Book of Five Rings. The book has 5 chapters, each named after one of the 5 elements in Buddhist philosophy: earth, water, fire, wind, and void. The earth chapter is the starting point. It teaches the reader to understand everything, from the smallest details to the biggest ideas. The water chapter is about flexibility. Just as water can be a gentle stream or a powerful ocean, a warrior must adapt to every situation. The fire chapter discusses the art of fighting, how to take the right moment and control the rhythm of a battle. The wind chapter examines other sword schools, teaching the reader to understand opponents. The void chapter, the shortest but the deepest, is about a state of mind where there is no fear, no hesitation, only acting freely without doubt or hesitation. The Book of Five Rings is not just a book about swordsmanship, it is a philosophy of life. Musashi wrote that the purpose of practice is not to become stronger than others, but to overcome the person you were yesterday. 2 weeks before his death, Musashi wrote Dokodo, The Path of Walking Alone, 21 Rules for Living. These final words show a spirit of self-discipline, independence, and letting go of all attachments in life. On 13th of June 1645, Miyamoto Musashi died. Following his wish, he was buried in his battle armor, like a warrior ready for one last fight. Legend says that at the moment he was laid in the ground, a flash of lightning crossed the sky, as if the gods were welcoming the soul of the sword saint. Lessons from Musashi's life. Nearly 400 years have passed, but Musashi's story still inspires people around the world. His life teaches us many valuable lessons. Never stop practicing. Musashi trained every single day from his teenage years until the end of his life. He believed that everything is difficult at first, but if you keep going, you will master it. Be flexible and creative. Musashi never followed rules blindly. He used a wooden sword when he needed one, arrived late to upset his opponents, and invented the two-sword technique when everyone else used only one. He wrote, "Do not have a fixed position with the sword. Hold your sword as if you are about to strike. Balance strength with wisdom." Musashi was not only a warrior, but also an artist and a thinker. He showed that true strength comes not only from muscles or technique, but from the depth of the soul and an understanding of life. Be independent. Musashi lived most of his life as a masterless swordsman, free from any lord. He wrote, "I respect the gods and the Buddha, but I do not depend on them." He believed in his own strength and took full responsibility for his fate. Always try to improve. Perhaps the most important lesson of all. Musashi spent his whole life following the way, not to defeat others, but to go beyond his own limits and to find understanding through mastering an art. If you understand one thing deeply, you will understand 10,000 things. That was Musashi's teaching. When we truly understand something, that understanding shines a light on every other part of our lives.